So our next speaker is Ichiro Takayoshi. He is an associate professor of English. Professor Takayoshi is part of the humanities at Tufts. The humanities have been described by the American Academy of Arts and Sciences as disciplines of memory and imagination, telling us where we have been and helping us envision where we are going. So even though 2 of the 3 talks this evening are sort of STEM-based talks, the humanities are a really important piece at Tufts. Dr. Takayoshi specializes in American literature and social thought in the modern period, specifically 20th century American literary and intellectual history and political theory. In a recent conversation, Dr. Takayoshi described for me American literature as vast and loose, helping to define the basis of liberty and freedom. Dr. Takayoshi is a dedicated teacher who helps his students feel the facts by analogy and example. And to listen to him describe it, you can just tell how passionate he is. Dr. Takayoshi is the recipient of numerous honors and fellowships, including being named a Tisch College Faculty Fellow and a Neubauer Faculty Fellow. He received a Bachelor of Arts and a Master of Arts in Interdisciplinary Cultural Studies from the University of Tokyo and a PhD with distinction in English and Comparative Literature from Columbia University. Dr. Takayoshi has noted at some point, English professors stopped talking about imagination. Thankfully, Dr. Takayoshi has not. He is currently writing a book titled Reality and Imagination in America, 1900 to 1950. And his talk tonight is about how imagination works and what role it plays in creation and appreciation of literary works. So please welcome Dr. Takayoshi.
What do you see? If you see a dog, try to see it as a rabbit. If you see a rabbit, try to see it as a dog. I think everyone in the audience could do this. And if you could do this, that means you have the imagination. You just use your imagination. I begin this talk with this example, which philosophers call seeing as, in order to dispel a common idea that imagination is just for poets and painters. Imagination is just a small part of your mind you rarely use. That's not true. Not true at all. Imagination is a multitasker. It does a host of related jobs. It performs multiple tasks. Here's a list of some of the basic, most important functions that the imagination performs I'm going to talk about today. The reproductive function, that's the ability to recall images at will. Seeing as, that's the ability to see something as something else. The creative function, the ability to create new images. Imagining possibilities, the ability to conceive new possible situations, states of affairs. And imagining meanings, the ability to understand language. So of all these functions, the most basic one is the reproductive function. Thanks to it, you can imagine an object that's absent. Thanks to it, you can imagine the smile of your mother. You can imagine the eyes of your daughter who is away at college. Anyone can do this without much effort. So this is a very basic function. It's almost primitive, so much so that I suspect, I don't have proof, that some species, other than humans, may have this mental faculty. But this is also the most fundamental function of the imagination because it is at the root, at the bottom of all other more advanced ways of using the imagination. One of these more advanced ways of using the imagination is, in fact, seeing as. So let's bring back that picture. When you switched between the 2 ways of looking, what was happening in your head? I want to reconstruct that process in slow motion. Let's say you initially saw this picture as a rabbit. Now, when you heard my command, see it as a duck, your imagination began looking into the stock of all remembered images, probably millions of them, in your head, looking for an image of a duck. Once you found an image of a duck, you reconsidered this image with that remembered duck image in mind. And as you reconsidered this drawing, this remembered duck image began invading your visual field. This remembered duck image hijacks, so to speak, your present perception. And under its influence, the duck turned into a rabbit, or the rabbit turned into the rabbit in this case. Two quick points about this. First, seeing as is an extension, an application of the most basic function of the imagination, the reproductive function. How so? In a way, you're not looking at the drawing itself. You are looking at your own memory. Or if you want to be a bit more nuanced about this, you can say that you are looking at the drawing through your memory. The second point, seeing as is creative. You see a puff of cloud in the sky, and then let's say you see it as an elephant. The resulting image of cloud as an elephant, that's an unprecedented image. That has never existed in the world until you imagined it. It cannot be reduced to the cloud itself. It cannot be reduced to your remembered image of some random elephant. It's not a reproduction, it's a creation. Now, even more creative is the imagination's creative function. Here's another experiment for you. Imagine a pink elephant. Let's call it a jumbo. Pink jumbo, pink jumbo, pink jumbo. Again, everyone can do this. And it is puzzling because no one here in the audience has ever seen a pink jumbo. So the question is, how can you recall an image of an object you have never seen before? Again, what's happening in your imagination is this. Initially, your imagination calls up an image of jumbo, which you know from your memory, from your experiences, and an image of color pink, and superimposes the color onto the image of jumbo. Let's note that the two basic components here, jumbo and color pink, they are taken from your memory. They are taken from your past experiences. However, the combined image as a whole is a new creation. Now, in this way, I'm trying to ease you into a certain way of thinking about the imagination. Imagination as a combination machine. You can keep feeding this machine with more and more images, more and more objects. And that way, you can conceive an infinity of possible hypothetical situations. I can imagine a jumbo. I can imagine a pink jumbo. I can imagine a pink jumbo dancing. I can imagine the earth is flat. I can imagine a pink jumbo dancing on the flat earth. On and on. That way, I can imagine an infinity of increasingly complex, hypothetical, possible situations. This ability to conceive an infinity of possible situations contributes to our ability to understand an infinity of sentences. So let's take a look at my example. It's a short poem by William Carlos Williams. So much depends upon a red wheelbarrow glazed with rainwater beside the white chickens. These are all basic words with basic meanings. The grammar is straightforward. But figuring out what these words mean and how these words are put together isn't enough. I don't call that an understanding of this poem. an additional step is required. What is it? You have to be able to conceive, figure out, imagine what sort of possible situation must be the case if this sentence is to be true. And which mental faculty do you use to conceive a new possible situation, such as a pink jumbo is dancing on the flat earth? You use your imagination. Now, some of you, or many of you, may have been expecting that because my talk is about the imagination and literature, I was going to show you how the imagination can produce some bizarre, far-fetched, or profound interpretations. But my point here is the exact opposite. You need the imagination to get the most basic job of reading done. That is to say, you need imagination to understand the meaning of a sentence you encounter for the first time. This finally takes me to the question that is in the subtitle of my talk. Why and how is the imagination important to literature? On the screen, you see some of the books I have been teaching lately. Anna Karenina, a story of adultery set in 19th century Russian high society. Madame Bovary, another adultery novel set in a small provincial town in 19th century France. The Great Gatsby, a story of platonic love and upward mobility in a Jazz Age America. Invisible Man, a story of a black man's moral and political education during the Great Depression. Wise Blood, a story of a World War II veteran coming back to the United States and starting an anti-religion church in the South of all places. Herzog, a story of a Jewish professor in midlife crisis after his second divorce. And Blood Meridian, a story of a band of bloodthirsty, deranged bounty hunters in the immediate aftermath of the Mexican-American War. Now, what do they have in common? Two features. First, the worlds they project are enormously complex. Williams' poem contains only a few simple images combined into a very static, instantaneous picture. That was all. However, in these books, you find thousands of objects combined into uniquely complex situations. Second, these situations are not static. They evolve over the course of your reading. One situation turns into another, and into another, and into another, until you finish reading the last word of the book. Now, you find these two features in any successful work of literature. Literature is distinct because it can project a dynamic succession of uniquely complex situations. That's why reading literature puts your imagination under an enormous stress. To understand that very simple poem by Williams, all you had to do was to recall a few simple images: rainwater, the color red, wheelbarrow, white chickens, and then combine them into a simple pattern. But when you're trying to understand the fully realized work of art, you must ransack your memory for a host of images, smells, touches, events, actions, feelings, ideas, combine them into unique situations, unique patterns, and keep track of them as they evolve into something else. Moreover, unlike Williams' poem, most literary works make an extensive use of figurative language. I'm talking about metaphors and similes. That means that you have to be ready to see something as something else right on cue. Just as you did when you saw a rabbit as a duck, and the duck as a rabbit. Let me conclude with a quick remark on one of the implications of what I have just said. When you read literary works, you find your experiences new and fresh. Of course, literature is meant to open the door to strange, new situations. There is no surprise there. However, at the same time, reading literature can often compel you to confront yourself, to re-examine yourself. Reading literature can lead to a deeper understanding of not what's in the book, okay, but what's inside you, who you are, your closest friends, your most intimate relations, your most familiar situations, and your oldest memory. And this double vision, this double feeling of returning to yourself, returning to the familiar through the unfamiliar, that is an inevitable consequence of the fact that imagination is a place, perhaps the only place, where the actual meet the possible. Thank you.